Okay, Boxing Monthly is assessing British boxing standing in the world, or against the world. We have Glyn Leach and Steve Lillis engaged in a dialogue with Steve Farhood from New York. So the first question posed is by Steve Lillis. Carl Froch versus Lucian Bute. Will there be any need for a rematch? And that question was posed to Steve Lillis. And he's saying that unless there's a serious controversy in the scoring, it's unlikely. Also, with American television showing little interesting in what they're calling, not me, an A-plus fight, you are left wondering if there will be any money left in the pot for a return. If Froch wins, he can earn serious money fighting Kessler again. Lose, and he can still earn good money fighting the likes of George Groves and James DeGale at 168 pounds. Or Nathan Cleverly at 175. If Bute is triumphant, he can fight the likes of Andre Ward, and if he loses against Froch, he can start clamoring for a match against his domestic rival, Jean Pascal. That would be a Canadian super fight. Boxing Beats a Rhyme says Pascal and Bute should have happened at least 2 years ago. Steve Farhood says boxing isn't tennis or football. A rematch should not be made until the first match is completed, or if there's a loud and clear call for a return. Imagine if there had been a home-and-home series for Ward versus Froch, after Ward dominated Froch in Atlantic City. Would there have been an appetite for a rematch, even if the fight was held in England? Certainly not. So in effect, I can't see HBO or Showtime agreeing to a pair of fights, especially if the first fight was a bore fest or a one-sided beatdown. Glyn Leach seems to conclude that aesthetically that's for Froch and Bute to decide. Or maybe just Bute. Carl does what Carl does, and if an opponent wants to go toe-to-toe with him, you can guarantee he'll be there punching with them. Bute, on the other hand, is a cuter fighter. The southpaw can hit, but Andrade already showed that his chin might not be the greatest in the world. Bute is more comfortable fighting a cautious counter-punching fight, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did for this one. For the slightest chance of a rematch, Froch must win, because Bute will want his belt back. Canadian TV will back him. There will be no call for a Froch rematch with Andre Ward, so Bute too would be an attractive option for Froch. But if Bute wins, he'll move on to face Ward and decide who's the top man at super middleweight. That's a fight that the American television networks would be very much interested in. However, Boxing Beats a Rhyme says Bute versus Ward would be very interesting to see, but it wouldn't decide who's the top man because Ward would be the top man going in after winning the Super 6 and facing far tougher competition than Bute has in the last 2 and 3 years. Simple as. Nathan Cleverly and Ricky Burns. Are they ready to face the top men in their respective divisions? Steve Lillis, he says that Burns reminds him of former WBO featherweight champion Steve Robinson, who was capable of beating good men but lost to the elite like Nassim Hamed. The Scot is underrated. He may not be Antonio DeMarco, Yoricus Gamboa, Brandon Rios, or Miguel Vasquez, but he wouldn't be disgraced. He is perhaps more ready to step up a level than Nathan Cleverly, who is only 25 and still improving. Cleverly would have a chance against Beibut Shemenov and Tavoris Cloud, but he should forget the likes of Bernard Hopkins, Chad Dawson, and Jean Pascal. Lillis also says that Zolt Erde and Gabriel Campillo are decent beatable names for Cleverly. Damn, dude. Boxing Beats and Rhyme says, I don't think Nathan can beat Campillo. I'm just not sure about that at all. Steve Farhood, he says, Cleverly is clearly a talented fighter, but he's also the poster boy for fighters who hold world titles only because there are so many of them to choose from. The belt doesn't make the fighter. At light heavy, the names are Hopkins, Dawson, Cloud, and Pascal. Until he defeats a Shumanov or a Campillo, Cleverly should be viewed as a level below. Is he ready to face the elite? Well, it's a case of no risk, no reward. Burns, on the other hand, has beaten a higher level of opposition. With that said, he might be an underdog if he is lured away from the UK. But he's a good, smart boxer who would be competitive with any lightweight you choose to pitch him in there with. Glenn Leach says that Burns has had a harder road to becoming a champion than Cleverly. He also says that Cleverly has had a classic prospects development, steady progression against intelligently selected opponents. His championship is the more standard upgrade from the interim. Cleverly has taken his time to get to this level, and he's only recently being put into fights where his opponents have at least a 35% chance of winning. He's not ready for the elite champions yet. Give him another 18 months. And Boxing Beats and Rhymes says, if you're not ready to fight the elite, don't challenge for a world title belt. What if George Groves beats Robert Stieglitz? And I'm not going to read all their opinions and assessments of that. The general consensus is he's going after the weaker champion. He'll more than likely beat Stieglitz and cash in by fighting domestic and European level opposition as opposed to elite. And you know my feelings on that bullshit already. In the wake of the Derek Chisora and Vitaly Klitschko episodes, did the post-fight brawl really do harm to boxing? Steve Lillis says that and the gangster threats allegedly faced by George Groves did the sport no good at all. And then if you add in newspaper columnists like Patrick Collins for the Mail, who is anti-boxing, it's not been a good look. Then he finishes off by saying Chisora would be better served using his suspension to join Celebrity Big Brother or running around the jungle with neurotic Z-listers and former Priory inmates. Steve Farhood says there's a difference between striking your opponent before the fight starts and starting a fight at the post-fight conference. He says the first option could have led to the fight being cancelled. And in that case, everybody loses. It's unprofessional, it's classless. But remember, this is not table tennis, this is boxing. He also said that Chisora jeopardized the whole show by striking Vitaly. And he's also pissed that Hayes showed far more intensity with Chisora than he had than when he faced Vladimir last year. Otherwise, no broken bones, no criminal charges, no foul. Steve Lillis says having his British license withdrawn, talking about Derek, is that he'll lose out on maybe 2 fights in his career. And he'll be allowed to reapply in December and box again in early 2013. If he is kept out for much longer, the British Boxing Board of Control could face a legal minefield for restraint of trade. After the hearing in Cardiff, Chisora's MGM teaser led many to believe he'll box in Las Vegas. But the Nevada Commission are unlikely to license Derek without the British Boxing Board of Control's consent, saying he's okay to box. So I don't expect him to pop up overseas anytime soon. Steve Farhood gets very emotional in his response, saying, "The ban is justified. We don't need lunatics running the asylum," and he reminds us of Lennox Lewis versus Tyson and other skirmishes. He says the slap could have broke Vitaly's jaw, or that Derek could have broke his own hand and put the promotion in no man's land. And he says that the Board of Control should suspend him for a year. Glenn Leach, he says that withdrawing Chisora's license was a good thing, but the British Boxing Board of Control's decision to ban him indefinitely is a bad thing. He seems to agree that Frank Warren is right to be angry with the board's chairman, Charlie Giles, over allegations that he didn't represent the interest of the license holders in the Munich promotion, and that he had his hotel paid for by the WBC, who are not obligated, or I suppose they're not supposed to do that, really. And he states that the Board of Control should have set the guidelines out clear. Like, we'll consider your reapplication in a year's time and remove any grey areas from the equation, as opposed to suspending him indefinitely. And then the next question posed is, will David Haye fight Vitaly Klitschko nonetheless? Steve Lillis thinks it will happen sometime in 2012, despite what Haye's stock is right now in the heavyweight division. He thinks it's the most lucrative fight out there. Vitaly seems keen on it. He wants to earn some big money before retiring, but his advisor, Bern Boente, isn't so hot on it. And he wouldn't be surprised if there's a rift in the Klitschko camp right now, because crucially the Bank of Klitschko and the Paymasters RTL, the German television network that showcases Klitschko's fights and German boxing in general, they're taking the allegations serious from the Haye camp that Boente is trying to sabotage the fight from ever happening, and the network will force through and force the fight. Steve Farhood, he says on this side of the pond, we don't particularly care. Over here we're more concerned why Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather are not fighting. He says David Haye has been banished from the consciousness of the American public. He says Haye's only fought twice on American TV, and one of them was against Vlad and he flopped. And the fact that he's being mentioned to get a second shot at a world title is more an indictment on the heavyweight division than David Haye, the Klitschkos, or anyone else for that matter. Glenn Leach also thinks Haye will get the shot, though he doesn't merit the shot. He doesn't seem to really care either, because most of the challenges, let's face it, are not even half decent. And compared to G. Mark Mormick, David Haye looks like King Kong. Next question. If you were Martin Murray, would you challenge Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in his own backyard? And I'm not going to go through this one, because respect due to Martin Murray for winning the British Commonwealth title and the WBA Continental title. You know what I mean? There's free belts, there's free belts. And there's probably been less deserving challengers for titles than himself. But I just box-rexed him, and I can't see anyone of note who he's beaten for any of the titles or anything that would catapult him into world class. The first time I heard of Martin Murray was when he was challenging Felix Sturm. That's the first time I heard of the guy. And look, I'm prepared to admit I'm wrong. If you want to challenge me and say, yo, he deserves world title shots, he's world class, okay, do so. And we can go back and forth on that one. And if you're right, you're right. But I haven't seen it. I haven't heard about it, I haven't seen it. And for that matter, Chavez Jr. hasn't done anything world class in his career either. So, look, just like David Haye, if you can get the title shot and get some money, do your thing, baby, do your thing. You can prove yourself later. But right now, I can't cover that as a legitimate world title fight. I can't do it, man. Would you match Kell Brook with the winner of the Andre Berto Victor Ortiz match? Steve Lillis, he says, you are not ready to beat them when you've only fought at British and European level. He is at least 18 months from being ready for the world's best. And when the chance comes, it will take a monumental effort. Sky Sports have got over-the-top hots for Kell, and that guarantees him a shot at a big name down the line. If Berto loses clearly to Ortiz, then he would be a possible rival for late 2012 or early 2013. Ortiz would probably be too much of a handful for Kell right now. Brook would be looking at guys like Paulie Malignaggi and Marcus Maidana next. Steve Farhood, given his impressive win over Matthew Hatton, I wouldn't hesitate to match Brook with the Berto-Ortiz rematch winner. The bigger question is whether the winner will want to fight Brook. American TV has been in favor of both Berto and Ortiz for quite some time now, and the winner of a rematch will be in a good negotiating position. Brook, on the other hand, has had minimal exposure in the USA. If there's enough money to bring the fight to the UK, then why not? But from the American perspective, I have to think that at this point, the winner of the Berto-Ortiz 2 will view Brook as a high risk, low reward. Glenn Leach says it's very hard to say. We still haven't seen Kell in a fight where he has come close to showing what he's really made of. Very few people didn't expect him to outpoint Matthew, but I want to see him fight an opponent who's viewed at least 50-50. Someone who will force Brook out of his comfort zone. There's always that chance he's too good for his own good. But the likes of Floyd Mayweather are a rare breed. I would not maneuver Brook into a fight with Berto Ortiz for at least a year. I'd like to see him fight Marcus Maidana or a Shane Mosley. Boxing Beats and Rhymes says, Kelly's a good fighter. You know what I mean? He has some decent upper body movement, you know what I mean? He knows how to put his punches together. But I think he's a bit hyped up. I think Sky Sports have overamped Kell Brook. I do believe that. You know? And let's think of the logic of certain things, yeah? Kell Brook and his team are talking about fighting Amir Khan, right? Who's a young fighter, and despite the loss to Peterson, he's still a good fighter, fast fighter. He has decent power, and he's a decent boxer, yeah? They're talking about fighting Amir Khan. And not in 18 months, they're saying right now. But yet still, all the people are hyping him up are saying he's 18 months away from fighting Ortiz or Berto. I believe Khan can mix it up with both Berto and Ortiz. I believe right now. So if he's not ready to fight Berto and Ortiz, how is he ready to fight Khan? You know? So on the proviso he doesn't get to fight someone on the level of Khan, then he's going to fight Shane Mosley. Come on, man. Shane Mosley. Paulie Malignaggi. Come on, let's sort this shit out. Let me tell you who they should match Kell Brook with. I think the match should be Kell Brook versus Mike Jones. They both have similar records. They both have a similar amount of stoppages. Let's get it on. America, United Kingdom, whatever. Let's get that popping. You know what I mean? You know, he should take on that fighter. Like that's a Nigel Benflex taking on them kind of opponents. Yeah, it's risky, but it's risky for Mike Jones too. He hasn't fought the elite either. And he's been touted up as some great prospect. He's getting no younger either. He's 28. How old's Brook? 24, 25? You know, it's about time there was some grassroots matchmaking where they make the kind of matches that the YouTube boxing community just go crazy about, and they're just making pure videos and it just builds excitement. You know what I mean? But you know, some bitch ass promoter's gonna come out and say, oh, we can't make a match like that. It's not going to do no pay-per-view. They're not going to be able to sell out no arenas. You know something? Fuck you, man. Fuck you. Go and check my videos on boxing videos. I don't know. I'll find it for you. If you don't believe me, in one of my videos, I said Matthew Hatton and Kell Brook is no big fight. It's a one-sided fight. Don't try and build this up as some big domestic clash, because it's not, right? Matthew Hatton has no offense, right? The only thing that validates Matthew Hatton going in to fight for world titles like he did against Canelo is his brother's name, and that he trains hard. I'm not even saying the Kell Brook Matthew Hatton fight shouldn't have happened, but building it up as a big fight, yo, no way. Forget that. Forget that. You know? And you know, that's why boxing sucks. And the only reason I stick with it is because I've loved it since the early 80s, and I'm addicted, and I need my fix. Even though this is a weak strain that's serving me right now, a real low grade of product. They need to come with some sense of meaning. And with that, I'm going to say peace out, and I'll bring you another video later this evening. Peace.